Okay, y'all, how y'all doing? So I just have a very quick word for you all today. So I've been in the house all day, just kind of cleaning. I have a hair appointment tomorrow, so I had to wash, blow dry my hair, cleaning my bathroom, but then also just had me a shower. And I needed to go to the store because I have to go and pick up a few things for dinner. And it's also a rainy day, so I'm just moving really slow. But I literally heard God say this morning, and I feel like this message is for someone. I literally heard God say, you don't need experience, you need faith. And now, as I'm saying this to y'all, I heard him say, in my favor. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that again for the people in the back. I literally just heard the voice of God say, you don't need experience. You need faith and his favor and God's favor. And I am in the process of elevating, to a new role in my career, it's like it feels like a double whammy, but I'm gonna say it's a double blessing, where I'm doing something that I've never done before, right, in my field. And then I'm also taking on a leadership role, which I have never really been into a leadership position before. And I started to get in my head and say, God, I really just jumped in full throttle, with, of course, his guidance and his prompting to do so. I said, I jumped in full throttle because for me to not have experience in this, y'all, I'm just looking at my hair. It's hilarious, but it's okay. Listen, we natural over here, y'all, and I love my hair, so whatever. So anyways, I was like, God, I'm gonna be real with you. This is kind of something else right now, because you told me to apply for this, right? And I'm excited, but sometimes in my humanness, hold on, y'all, I'm so sorry. But sometimes in my humanness, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, when I'm about to go into these opportunities, just as well as yourselves, right? We start looking at stuff from a barrier perspective, and we don't look at it from like a what can God do perspective. We don't look at it from a perspective of why would God send us somewhere that he hasn't equipped us for. Even if you don't feel equipped, it doesn't equate to you not being equipped. You've never been in a certain position, yes, and that is true. However, it's a lot of positions I had never been in before, and guess what? Without not being in them, God literally made a way for me to learn roles. He literally made a way for me to obtain what I needed to obtain from the season. And so what I want to let you guys know is that you don't need experience. You need faith and you need God's favor. That's all you need. Right? Esther didn't have experience in being a queen, but she had faith and she had God's favor. David didn't have experience in being a king, but he had faith and he had God's favor. Okay? All right? Apostle Paul didn't have experience in being an apostle, but he had faith and he had God's favor. And I'm saying that to you guys is that before you had a child, whether you have a child or whether you're expecting one, you didn't have experience, but now you have God's faith and you have his favor. And so I know we get caught up in what we don't have, what we don't know, what we don't understand. But what I want to encourage you guys tonight or today with is what God encouraged me with, was that you don't need experience. All you need is, first of all, if God gave you a word and he told you to do something, that's that, right? But then outside of that, all you need is faith and his favor. That's it. That is the equipping. Because remember, King David had enough faith to fight Goliath. And because he had the faith to fight Goliath, God gave him the favor. And when Saul tried to pass him his war gear, David said, I'm not trained in that, aka I'm not equipped in that. All right, let me give y'all an example too from the word of God. Gideon, he was the least, as he called himself or referred to himself, in his tribe, right? And in his home too, because I think he was the youngest. And yes, he was afraid. Yeah, faith don't mean we not going to be a little bit afraid, y'all. We human. But it just means that we're going to move even despite the feelings of fear. Because God has not given us the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and that of a sound mind. And Gideon still moved. He did it a little bit afraid. He did it while asking God for a sign, but he did it. And he did it with less people than he thought he was going to be able to have. How many of y'all would have did it scared? How many of y'all would have did it afraid? How many of y'all would have did it regardless? And until you've been in that situation, right, you don't know if you would have been asking God for a sign too. So the point that I'm making is you don't need experience. Gideon had no experience in being in war. Joseph had no experience in being in going towards the promised land, and he was successing Moses. No pressure, right? He had no experience, but God told him to only be strong and courageous. And what I'm telling y'all is only be strong and courageous, because you don't need experience. You need faith, and you need God's favor. And if you have those things, you have what you need. You are well equipped. I love y'all. Be blessed.